It's all about the deal at Brunswick Auto Mart. Save big this month with deals like this. Don't miss the Make This the Summer event and lease a 2022 Ram 1500 Bighorn Quad Cab Night Edition 4x4 with 20-inch blackout wheels for just $375 a month. Or lease a 2022 Ram 1500 Laramie Crew Cab for just $397 a month. Brunswick Auto Mart. Car buying made truly simple.
Good evening, everyone. Welcome back to another Believeland Prep Podcast. I'm your host, Kevin Sleds. With me, my co-host, Joe Yule. What's going on, Joe?
Not too much, Kevin. Not too much. I'm excited. We're inching closer to the playoffs. One more week, man.
Yeah, we're heading into week 10. You got teams jockeying for seeds, and then you got others fighting for those final couple spots at 15 and 16, trying to get a win in week 10 and a little help from the teams in front of them. So, let's get right into it. We got some good recaps and some good previews for week 10. So why don't you go ahead and start us off?
Yeah, so I'm gonna kick us off in Akron. We had the St. Vincent St. Mary Fighting Irish hosting the Cleveland Heights Tigers. A very highly touted game this upcoming week. St. V's coming into the game 5-2. Cleveland Heights coming into the game 8-0. A lot of people said Cleveland Heights really hasn't played too many people. And we all know the St. Vincent St. Mary team has, and they've beaten a lot of really good teams like that Ursuline team on with Hoban all last week. They're a very talented team. And Cleveland Heights received the opening kickoff, and they were able to put a drive together that ended with a 7-point lead with 7:03 left to play in the first. And St. Vincent St. Mary got the ball back, and their running back, D'Anthony Kelker, broke loose for a 55-yard touchdown to tie the game up 7 apiece. And then it was kind of back and forth for the most part. And then the Tigers hope to get a touchdown back really quickly after Santonio Harper ran in for a 5-yard touchdown for St. V's in the second quarter. And St. Vincent St. Mary was able to stop the Tigers right after that. They put another drive together, getting up to 21-7 lead in the first half. Really, it was just on cruise control for St. V's the rest of the game. They ended up closing the game out with a total. God, what was the final? I'm sorry, 49-20. Yeah, 49-21. And for Cleveland Heights, it was really their quarterback, Darian Fair, led the way. He always does. He's a phenomenal athlete, dual threat quarterback. He led the way with 134 rushing yards, and then Bisker, their running back, also had 89 yards. And for St. Vincent St. Mary, they'll come up to 6-2 on the season. Kelker led the way on the ground for 145 yards on 11 carries, while Harper was right behind him with 17 carries for 128 yards. This Coach Stone has he's got a good team over there at St. V's. I'm excited to see how their playoff season turns out.
Definitely. So my first one, I had Middlefield Cardinal, who was taking on Cuyahoga Heights, who came in with only one loss. Very good team. But they left with 2 losses because Cardinal pulled it off 16-10, moving to 5-4 on the season. We don't have a lot of information on the game, but we do have some stats. Josh Soltish, their standout running back, who we had on last week for an interview, had 21 carries for 72 yards and a touchdown. He did fumble twice. It was two of the 3 fumbles on the day for Cardinal, but thankfully for them, it didn't end up hurting them. Their quarterback, Logan Streever, was 10-21, 189 yards. Had a touchdown and interception, also chipped in 86 yards on the ground. Receiving wise, Kyle Sinclair, 4 catches, 91 yards and a touchdown. So solid game out of him. And defensively, they held Cuyahoga Heights to 180 yards passing and 138 yards rushing. So a solid defensive effort and a big win for Cardinal for sure.
No doubt about it. It was, I think that was a huge win for Cardinal. Get them back in the right area. According to Drew Pasture, I think they have about a 25% chance to host a home playoff game if they do make the top 8 seed. a few things need to happen, a few things need to fall into place, but they're not too far off on getting a first game home playoff game. That'd be awesome, I think. So definitely rooting to see what happens to the Cardinal Huskies in the playoffs and how their game this upcoming week, which we'll talk about later, is going to turn out. But next game I want to talk about for sure is the Garfield Brookfield game. Garfield could really never get going on anything. They struggled a lot, and Brookfield threw the ball a lot, really well, really far. I wasn't able to get names from Brookfield, but number 7, their receiver, he's a phenomenal player. Kid made a lot of great catches, scored 2 touchdowns while I was there watching the game. Brookfield's quarterback, normally a dual threat quarterback, actually pulled his hamstring the first play of the game. So kind of took his running ability away, but played the rest of the game, learned, how to have pocket presence, had it really well. Still broke up a couple runs and everything, but you could tell that right hamstring was a little sore and a little tender. But he battled through it, got the win 35-14.
Nice. That was a big game. Both teams had 1 loss. So
that's the MVAC championship as well. Mahoning Valley Athletic Conference for that side is it's going to be Brookfield as your champion.
All right. Next would take us out to Portage County, where I was at Friday night, where Crestwood was hosting Grand Valley, and Crestwood ended up taking this one 27-21 to move to 4-5 on the season. This game was scoreless in the first. Grand Valley had a little drive going at the end of the first, and they ended up scoring at the start of the second quarter. Quarterback Nate Belarski had a 5-yard touchdown pass to Aiden Whitwright, put him up 7-0. Crestwood responded before the half. Charlie Summer hit Jonas Honeycutt. You'll hear that combination a couple times. 21 yards out, tied the game up 7-7 at halftime. So starting the second half, Crestwood came right out and scored third play of the third quarter as Nate Blasio busted loose for a 52-yard touchdown run. They missed the PAT. That put him up 13-7. They held Grand Valley on that possession, but they had the turnover on Dallas on a 4th and 5 from the Grand Valley 35-yard line. And the very next play, Grand Valley quarterback Nate Belarski ran right. There was nowhere to go, reversed his field to the left, and it was wide open, and he took it 65 yards for the touchdown. They also missed a point after, tying it up at 13. Crestwood struck again, Summer to Honeycutt. Once again, 19 yards. Again, they tried for 2, missed it, so they were up 19-13 to start the fourth quarter. And Grand Valley actually took the lead after a 3-yard touchdown by their big running back, 225-pound Casey Turner. Ran it in from 3 yards out. They converted the 2-point conversion, put them up 21-19. But that combination, once again, Summer to Honeycutt, 34 yards, and Blasio ran in a 2-point conversion, put them up 27-21. Grand Valley had one more chance. Crossing pattern at the 50-yard line, and I didn't catch who the defender was from Crestwood, but he laid him out, caused a fumble. They recovered, and they were able to run out the clock for a big win for Crestwood. As far as stats go for Grand Valley, Nate Belarski, 144 yards passing and a touchdown. Also had 121 yards rushing in that big 65-yard touchdown run. Charlie Summer, the quarterback for Crestwood, had one of his best games, 7-14, 108 yards and 3 touchdowns. Nate Blasio, 43 carries, 254 yards and a touchdown. I know he mentioned to us that one of his personal goals was 1,000 yards, and he's about 40-some yards away, so it looks like he's got a good shot at getting that.
That's
and then Jonas Honeycutt, 4 catches, 85 yards, and those 3 touchdowns.
Yeah, I mean that's a huge win for Crestwood to get back on board as they play a tough opponent this week in Hawken. We'll see what happens with that game. But really a ginormous suburban league game happened on Friday night in Aurora as the Aurora Green Men hosted the Highland Hornets. This game was, it was a menage a trois in a way, and then Highland just ran away with it 30-3. I mean, it was a statement game, I think, for this Highland team. I think, our reporter Joey Schneider was there. He just said Highland's defense is absolutely unreal. When we talked to Coach Mike Hay, he brought up how this could be possibly the best defense he's seen in the Suburban League in his 25 years there. That says something with how talented the Suburban League is normally. So Coach Mike Gibbons has a phenomenal team there. We've covered a lot of Coach Gibbons games and the Highland Hornets, and he's always a treat to get to talk to. He's a really great guy.
Yep.
But as far as stat goes, Highland, their senior running back, linebacker, Luke Stiles, 21 carries, 119 yards, and 3 touchdowns. Highland's defense entirely, which is, you don't talk about individual team stats with individual stats, but Highland's defense had 2 forced fumbles and 2 recoveries, 2 interceptions, and only 3 points allowed.
Wow. That's pretty impressive.
It's an unbelievable performance. And, you look at Aurora stat leaders and you understand why they only put up 3 points. Sam Retton, 1 for 3 passing, 7 yards, 12 carries, 75 yards. Not the greatest performance from your quarterback. This Highland defense is just, they're elite.
Well, you talk about defensive battles, and that's for sure what this next one was, and a possible state championship preview as well, as St. Ed's took on Cincinnati Moeller, and Ed's took this one 6-0. So not a big offensive game, a lot of defense, but Ed's moves to 8-1, and handing Moeller their first loss of the season, and they're now 8-1. There's two Ben Lavelle field goals in the first quarter. They had a converted fake punt lead to their first field goal, which was 46 yards. And then again in the third quarter, he hit another one from 47. So two long field goals for Lavelle, and he was really bouncing back from missing 4 field goals the week before. But Moeller actually forced a fumble late in the game, returned it for a touchdown, which could have gave him the win, but it was called back on a holding penalty. And also Moeller also fumbled inside the Ed's 1 yard line in the fourth quarter. So, two big mistakes, a holding penalty and a fumble really cost them the game. And Ed's was able to run out the clock after that last fumble. But stats wise, not a whole lot. Ed's running back Marvin Bell, 27 carries, 113 yards. And then Moeller, their running back Jordan Marshall, also had 100 yards, 106 on 21 carries. And Ed's defense held Moeller to 215 yards total offense.
Wow. Yeah, and then there were a lot of great games this week. A lot of rankings changed, a lot of playoff seedings changed. You saw a lot of teams flip flop on who may have home field the first or second round, if it does happen. But now it's kind of that time where you get to rivalry in a way. Some schools have gotten away from that, but there's 2 schools that there's something special about this rivalry. It's historic. Between Ledgemont merging with both those schools at one point. That those are mostly Cardinal for the most part, but Ledgemont, it almost split up half and half between these 2 schools and the Cardinal Huskies and the Berkshire Badgers. I think for Berkshire to win this game, it's going to be how can I contain Josh Schultes, because you may want to stop him, but you cannot stop this kid. Regardless, if you win or lose, he'll still have over 100 plus yards, if not 150 plus, and a couple touchdowns normally to pair with that, right? So, I think it's really, can you contain them? Can you force Cardinal to maybe throw the ball a little bit more than what they normally do? Like I said, the game that I went to go watch, they didn't have to throw the ball against Crestwood. They kind of just marched the ball down their throat, and they didn't throw one pass that whole game. So, if you give them that flexibility to just be able to hand it off to Josh Schultes time and time and time again, or, let Logan Sturver run it, who's their quarterback, who a very solid passer as well, you're going to have issues. But the true key for Cardinal here is, can you contain Burton's quarterback, right? Burton's quarterback Miles Miller is a special player. This kid's really good. Already over the 1,000-yard mark on the season, getting close to that 2,000-yard mark in rushing yards alone, not even passing. This kid's a special talent. I believe a 3-sport athlete. I know 2 for sure in basketball. He's a great player. So I'm excited to see how this game's going to turn out. Neither team is playing for the CBC title this week. Both teams are eliminated for the most part. So it's really just those seniors' last games before they go to the playoffs, and it's their last game to play somebody that they've grown up playing year after year, and play with the guys that they got to play with year after year. And it's a small town, and everybody's going to be out from both towns. So I'm excited to see how this turns out.
Definitely. That'll be a cool sight for sure. We just talked about Eds and, their tough schedule. Just had to play Moeller, and it doesn't get any easier this week as they take on 9-0 Akron Hoban, one of the top teams in Northeast Ohio. And like I said, they come in at 9-0, Eds at 8-1. You look at Hoban, they've had wins over Clarkson North out of Canada, Cathedral Prep and PA, Iona Prep, Winthrop in Cincinnati. They a big win over Ignatius, Walsh, St. Francis, St. Vincent, St. Mary, and Benedictine this past week. And of course, you think about Akron Hoban, it's number 32, Lamar Sperling. You stop him, you got to stop him to have a chance. And so far, nobody's been able to do it. Looking at the Ed side, I mean, their schedule is just brutal, but they've come out of it 8-1. Central Catholic out of Toledo, Central Catholic PA, Cherry Creek, Elder out of Cincinnati, Rock Creek, Maryland, Ignatius, who they blew out, Clarkson North, and then Moeller. And their only loss was to Massillon, Washington. So this is going to be another game of two juggernauts going at each other. And like you said, the key will be is if Eds can stop Sperling, that'll give them the best chance to win for sure.
Yeah, no doubt about it. The next game that I think, and we got a little bit of another rivalry, right? St. Vincent St. Mary at Walsh Jesuit, 6-2. St. Vincent St. Mary traveling, a little cross town in a way to over to Walsh Jesuit. Excited for how this game is going to turn out. I think it's going to be a phenomenal game in all reality. I'm stoked for this game. It's a big rivalry. Quarterback Ryan Kersher from from Walsh Jesuit. We had on. He's a phenomenal player. He has a phenomenal backing as well, and his coaches and everything. Walsh Jesuit, they played a tough season. Talking about week 10 and everything, with some big wins that you can highlight for them is really their win against McDowell from PA. That was one of their losses. St. Francis de Sales from Columbus, Kansas, I think, from New York, and Padua as well. They've lost two really tough games against two good teams, one being that McDowell team, the other one being Hoban. So, I'm excited to see how that game turns out, because I really think that there's something, there's going to be a lot of special players playing in that game. And then on the other side for St. Vincent St. Mary, they're coming into the game 6-2. And, we talked about St. V's a little bit already. They had their loss to Glenville week 1, and then their loss 2 weeks ago to Archbishop Hoban. It's a really good St. Vincent St. Mary team. Knocking off an 8-1 Cleveland Heights team last week, 49-21. Beating a very tough Barberton team, 35-zip week 2. Beating a tough Warren G. Harding team. I don't care what the record says; they're a good team. At 27-12, beating Ursuline as well, who a lot of people. And if I was, looking at it, who I would say myself, that was kind of an upset game. Hanging with Hoban that whole entire time, I think was huge. And I think for Walsh, you really just got to key in on their running back, DeAnthony Kelker, right? This kid's a phenomenal player, and I'm excited to see what the final score of this game is going to be.
Definitely. So for my last one, sorry, not my last one, but second to last. Holy Name at 6-2. I got a little bit of green wave in me as I went there my freshman year before transferring out to Garfield. They're taking on Elyria Catholic, who's 8-1. Holy Name has wins over Padua, Parma, Lakewood, Valley Forge, Normandy, and Buckeye. And this is actually the second time they've played this year, which is a rarity. They lost to Elyria Catholic the first time, and also Clyde were their two losses. But their standout quarterback is Javon Williams. He's a dual threat. He has almost 700 yards passing and 6 touchdowns, and close to 500 yards rushing and 6 touchdowns as well on the ground. Looking at Elyria Catholic, they have big wins over their rival Elyria, Midview, Holy Name, as we mentioned, Rocky River, Fairview, Westlake, North Olmsted, and Bay this past week. Their only loss was to Perkins out of Sandusky, who's 8-1 on the season. And their standout running back, Levi Ellis, he had 133 yards and 2 touchdowns this past week, and he's their main guy offensively.
Yeah, I mean, our last game is going to be a huge playoff game, really, for the Suburban League. Tallmadge traveling to Barberton to close out their season. Quarterback Ty Hurst, who won one of our Player of the Weeks, phenomenal player. Kid's a really good quarterback. Doesn't make a lot of mistakes. He's really smart with the ball. And And, he goes to his number one option, Colin Dixon. Colin Dixon being a 3-star recruit, receiver, committed to Wisconsin. It's going to be tough for Barberton to contain, but this Barberton team is very talented. They have a very good defense as well. They beat a very tough Aurora team Aurora, beat Tallmadge, I think week 6 or week 7. So, it's going to be interesting to see how this game fares out. I'm excited to see this game as well. I mean, there's a lot of great games going on. Unfortunately, in a way, I'll be coaching, so I can't go to any of them. But I'm excited to see the outcomes of them.
Definitely. Now the last one I have is a big one in Portage County, a PTC championship game. Rootstown at 7-2 travels to Mogadore, who's 8-0. You look at Rootstown on the season; they had wins over Crestwood, Champion Field, Pymatuning Valley, Aquinas, Grand Valley, and Southeast, and their only losses were to a couple good teams, Conneaut and Warren JFK. And of course, you talk about Rootstown, you talk about Cody Coons, who, congratulations, broke the 2,000-yard mark this past week against Southeast with 186 yards. He stands at 2,040 yards. He's the 17th player in Portage County history to go over the 2,000-yard mark. And he's just behind Alan Vanderink from Crestwood and Anthony Dema from Garfield. So depending on how many yards he gets this week, he could possibly move into the top 10 if he has a 200-plus yard game against Mogadore. So once again, congrats to Cody. Mogadore on the season. Wins over Field, the Columbus Crusaders, Manchester, Liberty Benton, Lucas, Warren JFK, Southeast, and Aquinas. Of course, they had the cancellation against your university.
Yeah, it's sad. I really we'll be beating Highland this week. Hopefully everything goes right.
But they got their do-it-all guy, Mason Williams. As you know, we've talked about him several times. Offense, defense, he's everywhere. And quarterback Zeke Cameron's had a pretty nice season as well. He's only thrown 1 pick to this point. So should be a good matchup. Definitely a big test for Rootstown.
Yeah, no doubt about it. I mean, this week's game is going to be, really, really cool. Rootstown Mogadore is also a huge rivalry as well. Schools are very close to each other. So, other than it being the PTC championship, it's a big game within the schools, no matter what the record is. You've seen, actually, I think it was my sophomore year. Rootstown wasn't supposed to beat Mogadore. Maybe my junior year, Rootstown wasn't supposed to beat Mogadore, and we almost had a 3-way tie for the PTC title because Rootstown ended up upsetting Mogadore. And Mogadore was having an amazing season. They had a phenomenal team, and the rumor was Rootstown was a little down that year. So I think any given night it can happen. So we'll see what happens with the game.
Definitely. All right. Well, that wraps it up for this week. Next week, we'll definitely have a much bigger view of the playoffs. As I think the rankings come out on Tuesday. So, maybe we'll record a little later so we get all the rankings in and we can go over some of the matchups.
And we'll let Joe Ital too, which is, almost 99% accurate in my opinion.
Right.
He really doesn't miss too much. We'll have a really good idea for you guys. But go Indians as well.
Yeah, go Guardians.
Hopefully when you guys are listening to this, they won.
Yeah, they're in a rain delay, so hopefully they can pull it off and head on to the ALCS and face the Trash Throws.
Yeah.
All right, so that's it for this week. Everybody enjoy your week. Go Guardians, and we will talk to you next week.